Welcome to Previously on X-Men, the podcast that looks at X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. I'm Eric, and with me today should be, let me check notes, Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah. Hey, man. It should be Hillary. And actually, in the little holiday episode that we did, she did once again make her annual promise that she will be here for the Mojo episode. But I'm locked in a room with a microphone, and she's not here. So
Okay.
she did it again.
That's fine. I'm nothing if not adaptable.
I know. I've always said that about you. I feel it.
It's nice because I know if there's a bigger Mojo fan on the planet that isn't me, it's Nick.
You know, I'm here when duty calls, and Mojo has my number. So happy to be of service. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it. It's fine.
What else? What else do you want to know?
I don't know what's going on in your life.
I'm playing through Bowser's Fury on the Nintendo Switch.
I also am playing through Bowser's Fury. I kind of forgot. Yeah, I forgot that I had that as part of that like Mario / Bowser's Fury thing.
Oh, yeah.
I recently started it. It's weird.
Well,
it's a weird.
I've pretty much 100%ed all of the base game, the Super Mario 3D World, but I'm at the super secret, like not super secret, but I'm at the very last level, and it is brutal. So I decided to take a break. And yeah, Bowser's Fury is a good time. I wish we were talking more about that. I got a lot to say.
I keep wanting to play that new Zelda game that's like, you know, a modded version of the old game because I loved.
Oh yeah, you liked Link's Awakening, but you want the Echoes of Wisdom.
Okay.
It's an original game.
Oh, it is, but it's just sort of in that reboot style that Link's Awakening was. But
you know, this.
Okay. Well, I'm even more excited then.
I recently listened to an audiobook called Fight Magic Items, the history of like JRPGs, and he talked about in it how the reason why these classic games like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, they used to create, like Final Fantasy, for instance, would create its own engine to make the game, and they would do that every time. And now that takes so long that the idea is to make the engine and then reuse that engine a few times to make it worth it. And so I have to imagine that's the same thing. Like they worked, and spent money to make that Zelda engine that makes it look like a little toy box.
Yeah.
Might as well reuse it for
true.
that. But I think, especially this late in the game for the Switch, where, the Switch 2 probably should have come out 3 years ago. They're just like, quick, reuse the Zelda engine. I don't know, reuse the Pac-Man engine. We need something.
It's still, stupid monopolies, but it still makes me crazy that like launch titles for the Switch, like Luigi's Mansion or whatever, are still like $60.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's on sale for $55.
Yeah,
Nintendo's crazy.
Awful with that. But anyway, speaking of Nintendo, we're going to have some fun with that when we talk about Montendo / Lifedeath Part 1.
That's right.
This episode aired April 3rd, 2024. So I was still not watching this series.
Okay.
At this episode, because I was still like, I don't want to. But this will be the last episode I don't watch as it's happening.
Like on drop day. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So this is the first episode of its style in this series. There will be another one like it where I keep thinking of Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, true. Or the Ewoks show.
Yeah, sure. Beavis and Butthead's the more recent example for me because of that reboot that you just binged the last time you visited me.
Hey, I have no regrets about that.
We get half an episode to tell one story, and then there's a half episode to tell another story. So they don't do the multiple. There's no A plot and B plot here. I
forgot just how distinctive they were because you even get like a new. They don't do the whole opening song again, but you get like a title card for Lifedeath.
It's interesting. Maybe we could talk about it at the end, whether or not the concept works.
That's a good idea.
So the intro, you talking about the intro music, they changed things because Magneto's at the start of it now. But they also have started to show old 90s episodes done in the new style. So we get to see Jubilee versus Mojo in the second Mojo episode from the original 90s series, the one that had Longshot. Maybe it was just called Longshot, right? You were on that one.
It was, yeah.
They show some clips from the Dark Phoenix episodes. We get to see X Factor from the Iceman episode.
Yeah, I was also on that episode. Wow.
Yeah, for some reason, just because of Iceman?
I guess. Yeah. I think it was a two-parter with Mojo.
It was
Mojo
it was
and
both
Iceman,
those episodes. That's
together.
a weird coincidence, actually.
I know. And here we're back.
And seeing that does kind of make me wish we could have the whole 90s series redone in this animation, just because of how fluid this series animation is with action.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily love it when it's just people talking, but with actual, okay, now we need to move.
Yeah.
The old episodes used to struggle.
Well, and I think especially coming out of the final season of the original series going into this.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
Like, chalk figures and like big crayons coloring things in. It was good stuff. I do have some Hillary facts here to share with you. Do you want them?
Sure.
Hillary's notes tell me that it was directed by Chase Conley and written by Charlie Feldman and Bo DeMeo. We have Allison Court back as, what did she say? Abscissa?
Oh, boy.
This is why you need Hillary. Yeah, Abscissa. Yeah. And it was, I gotta say, Allison Court, I feel like she hasn't aged a day. Some of these voices are getting a little haggard, but hers, I thought was dead on.
Yeah.
And then we also have David Arrigo Jr. as Mojo, who also voices Banshee in the series. He voices the boy version of Ranma in that new reboot of Ranma, and he voices the Flash in Justice League versus Ruby.
It looks like he kind of does, no surprise, a little bit goofier voices for characters. Like he's on the Tiny Toon University. Yeah. Or Luniversity, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Oh, he was on the 90s show, Nick.
Wow. Yeah, I do remember.
He played Doug.
Yeah. That show's gone too soon. That was comfort food, that 90s show.
Sorry, man.
That's all right.
He's also Oswald in the Disney Dreamlight Valley video game.
Oh, okay. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit.
Anyways, he seems like he's more of a kind of fun cartoon vibe, which again will make sense.
Yeah.
Abby Trott is also the voice of Spiral.
Yeah, we got Spiral back. We had the whole Mojo gang.
And Nick, I think you might appreciate this. She also voices Magic in Marvel Rivals.
We just have been playing Marvel Rivals.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not doing great at it, but
if you see a Magic coming right at you and you don't have your team with you, you might as well just pray to your god.
Look out.
Oh, hey, she also voiced Leatherhead in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants Unleashed.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. I can hear that now.
And Wonder Woman in the Multiverses video game, which is not done well for Warner Brothers.
I don't know, the marketing for that and everything was like, this is going to be the next big thing. And it was like, nobody put in on that.
And then they canceled it, and then they brought it, or they like took it away and then brought it back.
Yeah. That can join the ranks of the Avengers game that was on Xbox and other things, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League.
Yeah.
They were like, this is it, baby. Buy stock early, and then it's just crickets.
That Suicide Squad game?
Yeah.
Warner Brothers took a $200 million loss on it.
Jeez. I can't believe that there's $200 million in that game, because I've played a little bit of it, and it's just like, I think I played this on PS2 back in the day.
Got him.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, let's get to the episode. It starts with Motendo. It starts with the X-Men having breakfast, and so there's a couple of like what the series is doing threads here, but not too many. You get the reminder that there's a love triangle going on between Magneto, Gambit, and Rogue, because Gambit offers Rogue coffee and Magneto already took care of it and offered 3 sugars with his magnetic spoons.
Yeah,
Gambit asked for a cappuccino.
He knew the way she took her coffee, which I think is risque.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I didn't think about that, but that's true.
Yeah, because they woke up and had coffee together in the past. It was my takeaway. Gambit's still rocking the rock and roll crop top, which I think is a trend that we should all try.
Try to bring back. There's a bit where and they all talk about how it's Jubilee's birthday and they need to do something, and Magneto's like, no, we need to practice in the danger room, otherwise she might not have more birthdays. And Morph is like, oh, somebody's parents didn't get him a pony. And he's like, my parents were killed.
I did like that, like the Morph tossing that out there and his reaction to Magneto. That was one of the highlights for me.
Yeah. But yes, Jubilee comes down and she's like, I'm turning 18. So now we have an actual age, because I don't know if we ever really knew how old she was in the 90s series.
I feel like she says she's 16 at some point, but
Yeah, that's how it had to be like 16 or close to 16.
yeah.
But I definitely I didn't realize she was 18.
Yeah.
Turning 18, because this show is supposed to just be like right at the end of the original series. So I guess maybe we meet her when she's 16 and she aged. But the point is, it's her 18th birthday on this day, and they're like, what do you want to do? She wants to go to the arcade because it will just be like old times. And Magneto makes a grumpy face, and we obviously learn what his answer was, because she's up there complaining. Though she does a pretty good Magneto impression, this voice actress. The Holly, like, she has it down, that whole like, oh, you're Magneto. It was funny.
I mean, you guys have talked about it before, but I think the Jubilee voice is so good because, like, if you didn't know, you could probably be like, yeah, that's probably the same. But it has some nuance and some, like, I think this voice actress is also bringing something new to it, but it's a really good mesh.
Yeah, she's a good actor for Jubilee. And it's nice because this Jubilee, I like this Jubilee, even though, there are some times I liked Jubilee in the 90s show. I like this Jubilee here because she's less of the intro character for us, so she gets to be a bit more like, she gets to be like the teen veteran, I guess, which is a fun role that we don't really have.
The way they use Roberto, I feel like, is really nice for her to have somebody to play off, somebody who's kind of on that level, because that's something that, like, whether it's Pride of the X-Men or the X-Men 90s series, you have that, like, young teen character and then all adults, and so you always have, like, everybody sort of a surrogate mentor, brother, big sister kind of thing. But here, she has a pal, maybe a
maybe a pal with benefits.
Oh, yeah.
She sees that there's a new video game console in her room, and she's like, I didn't get this. And then she's like, wait, Rogue did say there were some birthday surprises. This must be it.
Yeah.
But it turns out it's a Motendo, and it shoots out wires, and they get sucked into a video game, and she doesn't really know what's going on because they're being chased by Sentinels, and they started at the mansion, but now they're not. And then suddenly they're at Slave Island. They're at Genosha. And Roberto mentioned that Jean and Scott were off working with Genosha because Genosha is being brought into the United Nations.
Yeah.
And we're told by Jubilee here that this is Slave Island this is Genosha from the Slave Island episode of the very first season, where they were just like building dams, I guess, to create the Sentinel warehouse and everything. And it's not like it is now. So we'll see next episode what it looks like. But we're supposed to know that Genosha doesn't look like this anymore. But it's the same thing. You even see Blob and Sunfire doing the same work they had to do in that original episode. But out pops on a big old TV screen Mojo. Motendo, Mo Problems, Mojo, right?
And he looks like he's on a cleanse.
Yeah,
he really is. He's taking some time.
I mentioned he lost weight before Jubilee did. Yeah. And again, a new voice. This is not a great, like, if you want Mojo to sound like the same voice actor, that's not gonna happen here. No. He sounds a lot different, but it's still the same energy.
Oh, see, I don't think that I was going to say the opposite. I don't feel like it has the exuberance and the old Mojo is just so off kilter. He's just there's like this screw loose. And this guy just seems a little bit more straight to me, like in his delivery.
Sure.
He's like, hey, man, I'm kooky, where the old Mojo, like, might have killed you mid-sentence. And I don't know, I didn't quite get that same unhinged quality that I've come to expect from Mojo. It wasn't bad, but I felt like it was a different take. But
okay,
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that original take that we had, it was so 90s.
Oh,
like, it was something that existed in the same era of, like, Fox doing the Tick cartoon.
Yeah.
And, and Tasmania, and, like, all these different crazy cartoons that were happening in those early 90s. And now, yeah, I mean, I feel like the spirit is still kind of there, but I get what you're saying. I get the whole, like, he was all over the place in the 90s, and this one's a lot more focused.
Yeah.
But he does some of that bit when she's like, did you lose weight? And he's like, I had a nip, I had a tuck.
Yeah.
Anyway, he does this whole explanation that he's going into video games to steal people's attentions. He sees it as the future, and we have to remember this show is also in the 90s. Yes. So he's talking about how video games are the future and not TV, but he's also complaining about the X-Men as they are, and he kind of, shows bits where like, oh, who's the boss? And shows all these people, like, are they the leader? And then he shows the whole new world or whatever it is, and I think it's supposed to be making fun of like, oh, look how inclusive the X-Men are now. And then it's this whole Jean versus Scott divorce court thing. He's like, this isn't my X-Men. So I think he's attacking all those people like, oh, why did the X-Men get woke?
Yeah. Yeah. Was it Beavis? Was that Beavis or Butthead? I couldn't.
Yeah, that was Beavis.
I couldn't tell. Okay. I love when he pulls Jubilee because he wants to skew younger, and he's like, Dazzler had a gig. Don't ask him. I just thought that was a fun little throwaway. And I thought it was even more of like, it felt like kind of a deep cut because they go for the X-Men arcade style, which was like a big.
And that's what he says game, right there. It's the intro, right? You got Magneto hovering above. And the whole character selection is the same design. And so it's the two of them. And it's that same Holt mutant. And
and when we get into the Savage Land and stuff, they did a good job doing that game. Yeah. It's funny though, because when you see the Motendo, it's styled more like a Sega Genesis, in the cartridge is definitely modeled on the original X-Men game for Sega Genesis, which I loved. Yeah. So I like those. A lot of little deep cuts there that I appreciated.
That early Sega game where they were still like, oh, who's the hot new bad guys right now? Oh, yeah, Zaladane and Strife. Let's put them in the game.
Yeah, that game was so hard. No kidding.
Yeah. So, it's the X-Men arcade game. So they go through the Savage Land and they fight Magneto, who does the whole, like, Master of Magnetism, which is fun. And we notice there's a bug or Mojo calls it a bug. There's a character who keeps popping up and screwing things up and saving and giving them more life when they're losing it. And Mojo's like, where's my, we got to get rid of this bug. And Spiral is there. And she's like, that's what you get for killing the
tech help. Yeah.
They didn't kill the bug. And I mean, it is a very straightforward segment for only being like 10 or 12 minutes.
Yeah.
It's, having fun with that nostalgia thing with the arcade game and everything. And then we find out this character who, again, Hibiscus?
Abisca? I don't know.
Why? Why this name?
I don't know.
Anyway.
I guess I thought that it had some deeply, steeped X-Men lore that you were going to tell me about, but...
Oh, boy. I don't have
Okay.
it.
Well, I can tell you in mathematics, it means the x-coordinate, the distance from a point to the vertical or y-axis, measured parallel to the horizon, to the horizontal or x-axis. Is that helpful for you?
I get it.
Okay.
Like how far Jubilee is now.
Yeah. The horizontal coordinate of a point in a plane Cartesian coordinate system obtained by measuring parallel to the x-axis. So it's not a deep X-Men cut. It's a mathematical thing, which I guess makes sense if we're saying, she's kind of operating as this like ghost in the machine bug kind of thing, messing with the code.
Yeah. Anyway, it turns out that she is helping and that Mojo, before he did the game, he had tested the system by running versions of Roberto and Jubilee through over and over again.
Yeah.
And this is the only Jubilee that has survived. Yeah. And we know that she's been here for a while because she is very old. Or she's older. She's got gray hair wrinkles, she points out. And yes, this is Allison Court voicing the character. And it does kind of show how similar they are because I don't think when the two of them are talking, there's a huge difference.
No, there's really not.
I recognize Allison Court, but Allison Court is also, 30 years older. But I think that's a fun little, and because it is talking about, she talks about how it's been fun for Jubilee to go through all these old levels from all her old adventures and memories, because it's nice to know how everything is going to end.
Yeah.
But you need to move on from that. And it feels like a lesson for the viewer about nostalgia,
Yeah,
but I
maybe.
don't know if it lands. The Matrix, which one is it called? Matrix Resurrection did the same thing and had like, oh, nostalgia is toxic. And Jurassic World kind of tried to play off that a bit too. And I feel like
Now,
you can't really do that.
Which one
in
of those
these
had the
big-
long orgy scene? Was that Jurassic World or was that The Matrix?
That was Matrix Reloaded.
Matrix Reloaded. Okay, I confused
You're
them sometimes.
thinking, with the Jurassic ones, you're thinking of Fallen Kingdom.
Right. Okay.
Where they're like, we need to breed the dinosaurs,
Yeah.
just put them all in a room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put on some, I don't even know, who would you put on?
Some Charlie Parker, maybe. I think they'd
Sure.
appreciate this. Yeah.
And, just let them go. Whoa, we got a Tyrannosaurus out of this. A Brachiodactyl.
Look at that. Yes,
Yeah.
but can you comment on nostalgia in this way, in a nostalgia kind of thing? Is that your question?
Right. Yeah, in these, at these point, we love X-Men. X-Men's great, but at this point, it's Disney releases on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
X-Men 97.
Mm-hmm.
It loses some height from its soapbox,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, I mean, it's also just like stepping back and looking at the shows. It's also kind of like, you had Nicktoons and you had Doug, which was this perfect show, and then Disney buys it, and you have Disney's Doug, which was not as good and just
Trash.
you recognize it, but it's not the same kind of thing, and so there's a little bit of that there.
I mean, maybe it is the writers commenting on how, where this X-Men series is going to be different, but this would have had to be in so far in production that they wouldn't be responding directly to fan responses on it. So it kind of seems like, I think about Jurassic World, where they were commenting on, special effects and how the dinosaurs look and everything. It's like, well, we are at Jurassic World because we want to see the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to get to with technology and everything. But anyway, I guess it is a lesson like, hey, we're going to be doing some crazy things next episode and going forward. So relax. But I do also feel like people were on board already.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Certainly by
know.
this point. Yeah, I don't know that there was really need to kind of give us a message, but
And
whatever.
also, because this series, 97, is definitely targeted at the millennial viewers who were watching it as kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, they stop Mojo, they electrify him or something. Oh, Mojo gained all his weight back once he started absorbing
Once he was
people's
getting,
attention,
yes,
I guess.
yeah.
He gets electrocuted. This is a very anime-esque episode, especially when that, music starts playing at the end when they're fighting Mojo, and I do not know what that song is.
Yeah.
But it felt very what was that? I just saw Belle. Well, not just saw, but I saw Belle in theaters by the guy that did The Girl Who Leapt Through Time and Boy and the Beast and whatnot.
So
Anyways, it
highbrow.
just kind of feels like, look, we're in a crazy digital world and there's this music playing and we've got these characters using sparkly powers. And anyway, Mojo gets electrocuted and Spiral just pushes him over.
Yeah. I always hate in these episodes where they have, whether it's a sitcom or whatever, where it's like, oh, we have this person who's so funny, or, oh, we have this person who's such a great singer, or, oh, we have, and then they don't, go for it. I feel like if you're going to have a Mojo episode at this point and you've got the Disney, payroll and a gallery of writers, get somebody who can write, really sharp, funny dialogue and just bring them in for this episode and punch up the stuff that Mojo says, because, I like the little Dazzler bit, but I don't think he really had any zingers that landed. And I think that's the thing I missed the most in this. I just didn't find him to be funny.
Yeah, the other Mojo was a voice, but he also did voices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was something about that whole booby.
Yeah, I think for Mojo to work, you have to have some of those moments where he's so annoying, but that was pretty funny. And I don't think that was here.
Do you want to talk about why you have such a big crush on Spiral?
I don't think we have to get into it. I think there's a connection there, and I think she feels it, and I think I feel it, and would we ever act on it? Probably, but I think that's a conversation for another time.
You know what? I'm glad Mojo gained the weight back because I know the whole thing is that he's supposed to be ugly, but boy, it was hard to look at him when he was just that saggy flesh.
Yeah.
And then we saw it like from a bird's eye view, and you can see how skinny his waist is in the
that was the worst part. That was the worst part. Yeah.
It looked like a fat bastard.
Yes.
The end.
Yeah. With his Subway subs. Yeah. Gold member.
Yeah.
It
was the third one.
It would be interesting if this was sort of like because before, Mojo is just kind of representing excess, and at the time it was like gluttony and all that stuff. It'd be kind of funny if this Mojo was responding to like the cosmetic surgery kind of world, the Ozempic world, and going for that kind of thing.
Sure.
But I don't think that's what this was. I think it was just a little quick sight gag.
Yeah, and also there could have been more commentary on reboots.
Oh, for sure.
He could have had more fun examples of reboots. He talked about it. He could have shown more ideas. It's like, all right, if this doesn't work, we'll do this. And, showed a picture of Wolverine on an all-gene bachelor thing or something.
Yeah. It is. Anyway. Yeah, the old one was kind of commenting on the state of TV at the time. And I don't know. I don't know why they felt like this was the one they wanted to cut in half. I'm kind of split on this episode because on the one hand, I feel like it is maybe the only episode or the only segment in this whole first season that is like its own self-contained story that doesn't introduce some crazy paradigm shift. It's just a true old school standalone. But there's so much that they could.
Jubilee turned 18.
You're right.
And at the end of this episode, she kisses Roberto.
She does kiss Roberto.
And considering the direction they were heading when the little camera swipe came in, I think there's a little bit more than kissing going on.
It could be. Look, I just think that like this could have been a full episode, and we could have really explored like the landscape of current,
Sure.
It's something I appreciated about the X-Files reboot where they kind of went through each style of X-Files episodes and like gave us one. And I feel like in this abbreviated, like whatever it is, 8-10 episodes, it would have been nice to just have this is a zany standalone Mojo one-off, without diving into the melodrama.
Sure.
Shall we dive into the melodrama?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the next episode starts with Lifedeath. Does this say part 1?
I don't think it does on the screen.
All right. Well, it's Lifedeath, and it's part 1. This is based directly on the comic Uncanny X-Men 186, which came out in 1984. Written by Chris Claremont. Barry Windsor Smith was the artist at the time, which again, that issue was focusing on Storm and Forge kind of forming a relationship post Storm losing her powers.
Yeah. And I'll say that meal scene was steamier than anything I've seen. And it was certainly steamier than Hot Frosty, which I watched recently.
Last episode, she was at a bar, just drinking away her problems, I guess, and Forge had showed up and said, I'm a friend of Professor Xavier, and I'd like to give you your powers back. And so I guess part of that involves whining and dining Storm.
Yeah. So
he made her bison chili. And Nick, I have had bison chili in South Dakota.
Wow. Look at you.
It was pretty good.
I think I have had bison in my life.
Have you?
I think so. Not for a while.
It was good. I just remember, I think that kind of started me off being like, I really like chili.
Yeah. I did. Man, I want chili right now.
Yeah, that sounds good. I've got buffalo chicken soup cooking in my little crock pot at work right here. It's pretty good. So we find out Forge owes Professor Xavier, which is something we've never seen Forge in this series interact with Professor X at all. Right. We've only seen present day Forge like twice before, never with the Professor, and then in the future, and never with the Professor. So we don't know what the Professor did.
Yeah.
When he's pouring wine for Storm, she asks about his prosthetic metal arm and leg, and he says there was a war. I lost some things. I had to build it back. And then she goes directly into like, I miss flying.
Yeah.
She brings it back saying like, at least you could fix what's taken from you.
Yeah.
And he was like, sure, thanks.
Yeah.
He explains his power. She asks how it works, that you can build anything you think of. And he just kind of says like, I see connections that other people don't. It accesses dormant parts of my brain and all this stuff. And that is Forge's power. He can create whatever he wants. But as we learn, there are limitations to that just based on the world.
Yeah.
They're horseback riding, and she's enjoying that because it feels like she's flying again. She almost goes off a cliff. She talks about how the wind is only blowing to the east here, and it makes her feel weird. And also there's an owl, and Forge is like, shut up about the owl. And he doesn't say that, but he doesn't want to talk about the owl. And he says, you more than anyone know how fast the weather can change, which, if they didn't mean it to, it is a direct quote from X-Men The Last Stand. That line, word for word, is Xavier to Storm at the beginning of Last Stand.
I do remember that now. I doubt that's on purpose.
You think they just did it?
I mean, that's such an expression, and it makes sense.
You don't get to talk about how... Not you, Nick, but people don't get to talk about how much better X-Men 97 is than the X-Men movies, and then imagine that these two lines existed out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. So after the horseback, I should say this Life-Death segment is only about 8 minutes long.
Yeah.
I feel like the Mojo episode is longer.
It is.
I'll get more into it.
Okay.
Forge is working on something, and Storm comes down. Is like, you're still... Oh, we skipped over the part where they tried... He just put her in a machine. It's like, all right, use your powers, and nothing happened.
Right.
And it made her sad.
Yeah.
And she comes downstairs into the basement, and Forge is still working. She's like, why is fixing me so important to you? And he says, when I came back from the war, I had the power to build anything, but I didn't have the resources. And so I started doing contract work for the government, and that involved creating weapons to deal with dangerous mutants. And she's like, did you make this? And it's, the inhibitor collar that was on Slave Island. And he's like, no, a scientist in Scotland did that using my work. So I guess he's either talking about Dr. Adler, the whole Mystique Apocalypse stuff that was going on during that Rogue episode, or Moira.
Yeah, I wondered if it was a Moira reference.
I don't know, because I think it was Adler that was supposed to be responsible, so it was Mystique working for Magneto. I mean, not Magneto, Apocalypse. Anyway, Storm is shocked by this news, says you more than anyone should know about trusting people in Washington because he's Native American, and because Washington was
they don't have not a great history.
The Native Americans.
No, very not good history.
And so that's what she says. So there's a big difference here, and maybe it's not like a huge, but character-wise is a big difference. In the comics, Storm found out Forge was responsible for the creation of that device because she heard on the line, when she was on the phone, she heard Forge talking to Gyrick about it. And so she found out about that. Here, he admits it, which I think is a much stronger character moment.
Oh, sure.
For Forge.
Yeah.
Versus in the comics, and you can kind of see why a relationship would move forward more here than in the comics, because
rather than it starting on a lie.
Yeah, well, and it was the same kind of like heat and everything in the Life-Death comic, but meanwhile he's like, hopefully she never finds out, whereas here he's like, I'm sorry. And Storm in this is upset because it's like, you're not trying to fix me, you're just trying to absolve yourself. But Forge says, I love you, which seems real fast.
It is
for
very
8
fast.
minutes.
Very fast. Yeah.
8, and that's the problem with doing something like Life-Death in these 2 parts. It's like, that was so fast.
Yeah.
And he expected her to say the same thing, which next episode we're going to find out how she feels.
Yeah.
But it's crazy.
It is. I wish that I watched the whole season before you and Hillary started this watch through again. And I kind of wish that we could go back in time and I could give you my reaction to this episode on that first time through, because rewatching these episodes as you guys go through them, I feel jaded, because it's like I would have loved any of the 40 premises that they introduced across these 10 episodes to play out. I would have loved to have seen a season where the arc is just Magneto is leading the X-Men and they don't know how to deal with it. Like, give me 10 episodes of just that, of them getting their bearings and then move on to the next thing. And it's like, even this, the first time I saw it, it's such great acting from Alison Seeley-Smith, right, who is Storm. Such great acting from her. In this episode, like the tears when it happens, when she loses her powers the first time, all the voice acting is just so great. And I was really on board to watch this character deal with this loss and find her way forward. And I know that we're not going to get any of that. And so it's hard objectively now to look at it and dig into it, because I know we've talked about it more than they will talk about it in the remainder of the series. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That is my big issue with this show. And I know what you mean. Like, both the Forge actor and the Storm actor do great work in this episode, and the animation gets the atmosphere just right. But you're right, and not only that, it's the fact that they split it up into 2 episodes. Like, they almost didn't trust that this story itself could have its own episode.
Right.
Though maybe that's also their way of being like, look, now the story's been... It's weird pacing for this whole show.
It is weird pacing, and they didn't even save the I love you for part 2, which would have been like, it wouldn't actually be that they had more time together, but we would have sat with this relationship for longer if the next time.
It's not even right. We don't even get like time jumps.
No.
Like, we're supposed to believe this has been happening in real time.
Yes.
That, like, how long has Storm been there? A day? A weekend?
Right. Maybe. Yeah.
It is crazy, because in part 2, we find out that the part 2 is happening during...
Right, it's overlapping.
Episode 5 of this.
Yeah.
And so it's not even time jumped with the series. I guess.
I wish... I mean, Hillary said it last time. Like, I wish that you could understand, like, why they felt they had to do this. Even if they thought they were only going to have 1 season. Like, why? You know? Like, why... do you have to take X-Men, which has this famously like complex and at times convoluted history, where you can pick so many? You could do 40 seasons of an X-Men show and still have arcs left unexplored. So I just it upsets me. It upsets me because they introduce many things that I would like to watch that show. Yeah.
I would have been interested in seeing Limbo play out at least like 2 episodes.
I know. I feel like every episode might as well just be an extended previously on X-Men, because that's all the depth you get.
Storm slaps Forge and leaves, and I think she's having a nightmare, and she crashes through the floor.
Yeah.
And Forge is like, "What happened?" And she's like, "I don't know." And a giant owl demon comes into the room, breaking everything, and bites Forge, and he says, "Begone, demon." And the adversary kind of taunts Storm a little bit and then says that she's hungry. And this is based on the adversary, which is a Forge issue, which is part of the Fall of the Mutants storyline, which actually took place before Inferno. So...
really nice touch that demon owl has the Storm voice. I think that's a nice...
Yeah.
It just adds a depth to it that,
you just
I wish we had more of.
In your head, your own voice, or... I mean, it's, it's a demon that is haunting Forge, so the idea that maybe also Storm is haunting Forge.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff there.
Yeah.
And that's how it ends, with Storm in the grips of the adversary.
Yeah.
We will return in an all-bird themed episode to see Life-Death Part 2.
And that's based on the famous Demon Bird arc from New Mutants. Did I get that right? Is that...
No, that's the Demon Bear.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that now. I remember that now.
Yeah, that was Danny Moonstar's
issue.
Okay.
All right. Gotcha.
Demon Bird.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I can't think of 2 more unlike episodes to mash together.
Yeah. How do you feel, though, with the comic relief one being the first one? You kind of have to, right?
I think so. I don't think you'd have any patience for a cut to Mojo after the Demon Bird. I think that would be a real weird touch. And you sort of at least have the... like Jubilee and Roberto are you have kind of a romance theme maybe that comes through a little bit.
Oh, sure.
You transition there.
People wanting to kiss the theme. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think you're right. They felt like they couldn't trust a Storm Forge episode to just play out on its own without other X-Men, which I don't think the original show would have hesitated to do. But again, more time. But I don't understand.
Well, the 90s show, like, we would have been seeing I imagine the Storm Forge stuff would have been the A plot. And
Probably.
we would have had another B plot going on.
Yeah.
That we were going back and forth between.
As long as they didn't do it like 30-second clips of the Professor and Magneto in the Savage Land over the course of like 20 episodes. Nobody needs that.
Then you're happy.
Yeah.
A lot of my complaints about Life Death are going to be involving the second episode. But the big complaint I have here is just the I love you just comes out of nowhere.
And it's not
either
necessary.
Forge has fallen in love with Storm by watching like news footage of her, being like, this goddess.
Yeah.
If I ever met her in real life, I'm gonna tell her I love her.
Yeah, that's kooky.
I mean, it's nice. I mean, so I like some of the Mojo stuff, and I like the arcade game stuff. I like some of the Life Death stuff, but I don't know. This episode is not a strong one.
Yeah.
I guess in a way, I almost prefer the rushness of one episode as opposed to the rushness of 2 episodes crammed into one.
Yeah. I mean, neither one has time to breathe, which, again, is a hallmark of the series. But it's, like I said, if this was on my first watch, I was much more into all this stuff because I was genuinely, like, interested and excited to see where it goes and excited to see this play out with Storm and stuff. So, you know, I think my rating there would have been, like, probably a 4-star, even with the drawbacks. But now it's just kind of like, we rushed it and we're still not going to get a payoff. So what are we doing?
Yeah. All right.
Next time it's Remember It, which I assume is a Gambit thing.
Yep. So hold on to your horses for that episode because it's never been as good and it will never get better.
Yep. That is a very fair assessment.
And hold on to your tissues because I might have cried the first time
I do.
watched it. So
I remember that episode crystal clear. So yeah, I'm excited.
I had to go outside and take my dog outside. My wife thought I was talking to my neighbor or something because I was just out loud to myself like, get it together, man.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. A sad Gambit episode. Maybe I was on the wrong episode. Somebody has got to hold the hands of you and Hillary to get you through a sad Gambit episode. You can lean on each other.
Now.
You can lean on each other.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I get teary-eyed talking about good X-Men stuff. Often,
I know you do. I know. It's heartwarming. It's endearing.
All right. Well, thank you to Prophetic Music for our theme song. Previously on X-Men is brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. Other shows on the network include This Endorian Life, 90s Music's Got Me Like, and 9021 Here We Go. You can follow us on Facebook, and be sure to follow the network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And please rate, subscribe, and share the show wherever you get your podcast. Nick, thanks for stepping in when Hillary couldn't handle looking at Mojo for even a second.
Anytime.
And I will see you guys next time we talk about the animated series for Remember It. Bye!
So long.